So the most interesting part to me of JD Wicker's comments from the other day were when he said, we're going to get our media rights deal. Then we're going to add 1, 2, or 3 teams. Like, whoa. 3? 3. How are you doing 3? Who are these 3? Now, I have thrown water on the flames. I've been a wet blanket of sorts. The one time that I talked about Texas State here on the show. If you're a Bobcats fan listening to or watching this and you're going, hey, are we going to get into the Pac-12? Could this happen? If they go 3, I don't know how Texas State would get left out. That seems unlikely, but not impossible. Now, if I were the Pac-12, the number one school I'd want, if you were just talking about who strengthens my conference the most in all of its athletics, and let's disregard anything else. Nobody brings any different media rights valuation. It's all the same. Travel is going to be something we just don't consider anymore. Best of the West, we've thrown that idea to the wind. Memphis is number one. Memphis, to me, would be the unquestioned number one. Now, they barked up that tree and, fell off the branch a bit when they, offered schools like Memphis and Tulane. And then, they came together with that statement to say, hey, we've been offered by other conferences, or one other conference really, but we're staying with the American. This is where we're going to be. Well, I don't know what would have changed for Memphis between now and then, except if the Pac-12 goes to their media rights partners, whoever they may be, and it gives them sufficient exposure, or at least comparable exposure to what Memphis has in the American, but it's for significantly more money, then, hey, that could be something that's changed that makes the Tigers look at the calculus and go, well, yeah, this is probably something that we should consider now. But what you also have to factor in to however big that gap could be, if they're going to get $4 million more to be in the Pac-12 versus the American, well, that's great. But there's also a buyout that has to be paid to the American Conference. It can be paid over time, but still has to be paid. And secondly, the increased travel for all of the sports, that's several $million more. Depending on which team it is, the general estimates have been, $2 to $3 million extra. So would it really be worth it to them leaving the American, go to the Pac-12 for, an extra $1 million, $2 million on hand, depending on what it would be? I think from a media rights standpoint, the Pac-12 should be looking at, 10 to 12 million. If they get in that range, I think they're doing pretty darn well. And if you're a Pac-12 fan, you can have faith in Teresa Gold and what she is, bringing to the table as a commissioner compared to what George Kliavkoff had before. But because that obviously did not go supremely well. But Memphis would be the top option to me. But if they were to add 3 schools, right, they're sitting right now at 7. That would get them to 10. 9 would kind of make more sense, because then you could have an 8-game conference schedule. Everyone plays everyone every year. It's not the end of the world to rotate it, but to just have one team that you miss every year, not the craziest thing. There are far crazier things. I mean, look at what happens in these super conferences. In the Big Ten and the SEC, you've got this revolving door of, hey, we haven't played Missouri in 3 years. All of a sudden they're coming to town. They're in the same conference. So you get that big scheduling disparity. You won't have that in a conference where you have smaller numbers. And I don't think if you get, up to 10 schools that's going to change that calculus in a significant way. So I guess it could work. I just wonder how the calculation goes for the university presidents to say, well, if we bring in 3 schools, we're diluting our own media rights payouts here by having an extra mouth to feed. If no one brings value, you have to bring in 1, right? That's an absolute requirement. You've got to bring in 1 for 2026. You don't have to bring in a second, but you could. You don't have to bring in a third, but you could. So then you factor in, well, what's the calculation between this school strengthens our league athletically and this school is just a draw on what financial resources we are getting from our media rights partners. But if the number were to be 3 schools, the other thing that comes into play here is the Mountain West exit fees. So the Pac-12 and the Mountain West are still battling out in court over the exit fees from the Mountain West, which are like $17 million per school. And I don't believe that has to be paid in a lump sum. Don't quote me on that, but that's not typically how I believe those payments have worked. When a school leaves a conference, it can be paid, kind of structurally over time. But still, that money has to go from one conference to the other, but the Pac-12 is trying to get rid of that. If they are able to win that lawsuit and the exit fees are just done away with completely, what you might be looking at is a pitch to UNLV, where I suspect the Pac-12 wants to hold all their conference championships anyway, so having UNLV there would make a whole heck of a lot of sense. And, their recent football success, I think, would elevate the brand football-wise of the conference from a national perception. So UNLV would certainly make the most sense. And heck, UNLV might be the top target because of their geography anyway, because of the teams that are out west. That's the one you'd probably want to look at. Air Force has got really strong credentials football-wise as well. I don't think they have the same ceiling as a program like UNLV, but their floor is incredibly high. We saw UNLV's floor. It was bottom dweller. But their ceiling? I mean, they were close. They were in the Mountain West Championship game 2 years in a row. And I think they are absolutely capable of being a team that makes a conference championship, every couple of years in the new look Pac-12. So UNLV is I think the school that the Pac-12 wants the most. But if they're going to go to 3, I mean, if the Mountain West exit fees drop and those schools suddenly become, far more affordable than they would be with the exit fees, maybe they just try to, go full-fledged Mountain West, blow it up, and have some schools get hung out to dry like Oregon State and Washington State were. And on the one hand, it's hypocritical. On the other hand, it's survival of the fittest. You adapt or die, and this is the landscape, not the one that the Beavs and Cougs and everybody else chose. It's just the one that they were handed by the powers that be in this sport. So if you were to do that, then you'd probably go Nevada, Air Force, UNLV. I would think. I don't think San Jose State would make the cut. They don't have an incredibly strong track record really anywhere in athletics consistently. And Nevada would just kind of be a partner with UNLV. You've got Colorado State, so they'd get paired with Air Force. So from a travel partner standpoint, I mean. So that would be where they'd go. But let's say the exit fees remain and Mountain West schools are super expensive and they only want to take one. I suspect that would be UNLV. I think they would try to go out and get Memphis. But if Memphis says no, you're probably left with Texas State and North Texas if you're going for 3. And, I haven't talked about North Texas a ton here on the show, but who else are you going to add? Logical travel partner, getting as big of a stronghold or a foothold rather in the state of Texas that you possibly can. Like what other option would there be? You guys let me know in the comments below if I'm just wildly overlooking somebody here. But yeah, if they were to get 3 schools and only one could come from the Mountain West and, Memphis isn't on the table to reconsider, then yeah, you could see a North Texas, Texas State pairing because leaving the Sun Belt is pretty affordable. It's not a hard thing to do. North Texas is not in the Sun Belt. North Texas is in the American Conference, of course. But leaving that conference is not as hard as leaving the Mountain West. So I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by what that calculation is. If they land on 2, who are the 2? But if they're going 3, how's that going to play itself out? All these pieces. It's just everything's just kind of circling the wagon right now. The vultures are out. They're waiting. They're waiting and waiting and wait. They haven't had the opportunity to prance on it all just yet. But it's really, really close. The end is near for their prey. And so the vultures of realignment, they are circling overhead. They're winding up. The threat is not imminent, but just know it's on its way.